Hey, and welcome guys to another little tutorial on our little tower defense project. Now, today's video is over the newer version, well, let's say maybe experimental version of the navigational mesh that has a few features for us. Now, before we get too far into it, this tutorial is going to go over the navigation to do this particular function right here. We have our tower right here, and then our bad guys will come down and, point at us for now. We don't have the shooting logic and all that stuff in there because I want to go over the 2D kind of world stuff. Now, before we get too far into it and everything else, we have a small prefab of bad guys. And if you notice, we are using the 3D version of the navigational mesh agent, which is quite nice because it does basically everything. We just need to give it a position or, whatever that stuff is, right? So we got a script here. All the script does is set the position to come to this player right here. That's all it does. And it takes the head, which is just an empty transform right here. Okay. And then we have an image layer. All this is a sprite. If you've missed the last video of me explaining why we're using this sprite. Sprites are very, very easy to render. Okay? Very, very easy to render, and it has basically no vertices well, it has some vertices, but they're very, very little. Okay? So the sprite in itself or does it draw? I don't think it draws, actually. Or is it not? Ah, there we go. Okay, so here's the draw on the sprite. Okay, this is how it's drawn. Now, don't get me wrong. I know the whole weird looking. It doesn't look like anything that I've ever created when it comes to a mesh. But hey, to each its own, right? And it's just basically a flat image. I mean, it'll be a lot less than a whole mesh. All those vertices and all that. So, what the bad guy does, go back to shader, he just points this little shooter thing at the, appropriate location. And that's it. That's all he does. I got a head, which is our pointer object, what it points, and our helper. So with this being in mind, even if I drug our old script in and just changed up the mesh parts for this, it would still work perfectly fine, even though this is using 2D space. We still are using a transform, which is, a vector 3. But in the meantime, hey, we're trying to mesh it down to a 2D thing, right? Now some will go, oh, you're still using plane and stuff. Yeah, I am still using a plane, which does have its overhead. But look, all we have is this plane and the good guy, right? Look at the status. 1K triangles, 600 and some vertices. That's it. That's all it has. 1K, which is if you know how the actual rendering works, because this plane is in the view of the camera, in order for this thing to render, it has to draw the entire plane, okay, the entire mesh, and then send it to the video card. It just doesn't do what's inside this window. So most of this is coming from the plane, okay? So if we disable it, I think when it's off, it's running backwards. So let's try runtime, see if it acts stupid. Okay, this is with it on. Okay, so without the plane, we get 40 some triangles and 50 some vertices. But if you really think about it, we could technically do this at runtime. All we'd have to do is get a sprite to take its place, which wouldn't be very hard because the navigation still works. If I take this bad guy, and I don't think he'll still, yeah, he'll still move even though I'm just manipulating his stuff. Okay, so he's still moving and everything else. Then that's good. Okay, and he will go. So in our later tutorials, I'll show you how to just go into the mesh and disable this so we can get more memory out of our game. Because that's the whole point of going into our little 2D world. Now, the best thing about this is, here is what's the greatest thing about this tutorial is when we do this kind of navigation, and I strongly, let me do a save first, okay? This is the best thing about this. In the other navigation, which I will demonstrate, we could turn this. Look, the navigation is going with it, right? And this is how this works. This is the new navigation, okay? This right here is how it'll work. You can do this, you can go into surface. You can actually do this at runtime if you really want it. I just have it not at runtime because it's kind of silly for us to have this at runtime when we don't need it to be a runtime script, right? We have no need because we only do a square. We're going to go up and down. In 2D space, you really don't have heights, you know, how high something is versus how low it is. You just have one flat surface. And then you just fake the hills and stuff of that nature, right? So, the limitations of this when it comes to 2D is it has to have a mesh renderer for this to work, and it cannot be a quad. A quad will not work. And all you have to do is add this component right here, nav mesh surface script, and just hit bake. And it'll start a progress bar, which starts baking, and then we get a navigational mesh on top of this. Okay? But the problem with the good thing about this, you can cancel it, right? Okay? But let's talk about the old navigational way. We would have a flat plane, like so. Put 0, okay? Heedy ho. We would go into navigation, and then we would hit bake. Okay? Is it gonna do something? Bake settings? Or, oh, here's the other thing. The plane has to be static in order for it to why is it trying to do that for? Wait, no. If light mapping is on, I'm going to be no light mapping. Clear, clear, clear. Don't want that stuff. That is way too much CPU that I do not want to dedicate to light mapping junk. Okay? This has to be static, so we really can't do anything with this anymore, right? Because it's static and at runtime we wouldn't have a problem. We would have, so now I hit bake, okay? And we would get a navigational mesh when it gets done, And it's because this is so big, why it takes a while. So should I technically take this down a little? I don't know. It'll be fine. I mean, it's a quarter way done almost anyway. So that's the thing about it. And this navigation does not work in 2D space, because once you bake this in here, look, the navigation doesn't go with the mesh. It doesn't do this at all. And that really sucks, right? I mean, if I move this, then I have to rebake it. That's dumb. That sucks. But if I go into here with our handy dandy -90, and I go in here and bake it with this, I can be in 2D space. And the really cool thing about this is it stays with it. Yeah. You can have a prefab with it. That was one of the selling points of this navigation, is you can literally make this a prefab with the navigation, and it'll load up the navigation with it. As soon as it's done baking, I will show you guys how it all that cool stuff, because I don't want to lose my positional data and stuff, because that would suck. Then I had to find all my positions and rotations, and it's just not a happy camper for me. So I'm going to put this, we'll put this in a prefab. Okay, so we got a prefab here, right? Which it really doesn't matter, even if you did it. But see how it's got the navigational mesh back on it? So if I really wanted to, I can instantiate this with the navigational stuff at runtime. At runtime, which is beautiful. Beautiful. Okay? Not to mention the really cool thing of our 2D can also, use our nav mesh obstacle, which I wish it would. If it had a nav mesh obstacle on it, it would show me the nav mesh. But unfortunately, for some reason, it does not. Clear that little message. Don't care about the light mapping because we're not going to use it. But anyway, I wanted to show you guys this. Now, how we've got this set up is basically the bad guy, the head, which will be the thing that we lerp. This will be the object that we're going to be lerping. This is just a, your mesh layers or whatever. These values right here have to be in here because of the way 2D space works versus 3D. Think of it like an offset, okay? If we had nothing in here, which I'll copy the component and just reset it, it would look like this if it was pointing at something, which is, dumb and pointless, right? So there's the workflow for that. And you can have your body and all that stuff in there. The tower itself has a 3D collider and our Nav Mesh obstacle. And our camera is also just a perspective. I did have it orthographic, and I was okay with it. You can have either way, which doesn't bother me, which we will probably do an orthographic. Now that I really think about it, we probably should do an orthographic, because we haven't done a tutorial really with an orthographic camera, which they ain't bad. I mean, they're not a bad way of doing this and everything. I don't want a skybox. I did solid color, because watch my skybox. It looks like I get more, but if I have, let's go at runtime, see how this status looks. We've got a runtime, okay, skybox, solid color. Oh, that's kind of cool how it looks. See how it's got that like shadowy look and stuff because it's static now? That's kind of cool. I mean, it would give like an ambient look. Maybe we should put like some little lights or something with our on top where our towers are, or maybe give it some ambient occlusion or something. That would be kind of cool. But since we're not using what I call a we're definitely going to be flopping that to a sprite. Yeah, that's going to give us a lot more process, a lot more. We're going to juice down the vertices over 600. We're going to have less than 100 triangles. But we do have to have this mesh renderer, because well, technically that's probably not true. So let's experiment since we got some. Take this mesh collider, we'll keep it, but the mesh filter we're gonna remove. The mesh renderer, we're gonna remove that as well. So in the navigation you can, mask, collect objects, all of them, the volume, the children, layers. We're going to go on physics colliders. And then I'm going to see if this will bake, which I'm pretty sure it will. Yeah, it will do it. Okay, sweet. So it's based on the collider for the physics collider. All right, sweet. So we could still use everything. Oh, yeah, that'll work perfectly for me. We just use a plain mesh for the collider. Nice. And it's not going to give us any errors, because I changed it from the renders to the physics collider. So it's basing it, use the geometry from the colliders instead of that. Which, I mean, come on. That's what you probably want to use it for. So, in reality, you could probably also, if you wanted to make like a little path or something for like your guys, just create a mesh in like not Photoshop, but like Blender or something like that, and then just basically give yourself like little cutouts. Think of it as like a little puzzle, or use my favorite thing, a bunch of cubes. It works just like the old navigation for filtering out stuff. Put the stuff that you want to cut out in a layer, okay? Or just create your entire plane with all the vertices and all that. Create the plane in Blender and then use a cutout. Cut out the geometry that you do not want in the game. Then you can also use you could actually probably animate that whole entire background, water and all kinds of stuff. All you have to do is really think of it as like sprites, okay? When you do an animation for sprites, all you're doing is going from one image to the next image to the next image to the next image and the next image. So you're just blending it all. And because of the way sprite animations work and things, it would probably be pretty easy to do, actually. Or, you know, use a sprite water or any of that stuff. I mean, it completely is up to you. Particles will work just fine. Our bullets, they work on the transform space of themselves, so they will shoot just fine. But I'm really keen and fantastically fun that we do not have to include this other stuff in here. So we can go into our camera, put a solid color. It's like I said, you don't know until you try. So basically, you could use the navigation with just a mesh collider and then put a big old collider. What kind of other colliders do we got that may work? I don't want to do something like that. Plane, temperature, cylinder, quad doesn't work, spear won't work. Actually, let's get stupid and try. Why not, right? Let's get stupid and try. What could possibly go wrong, right? Oh, man, it's not going to let us. Because it's not a, yeah. It's not that kind of sprite. Ah, silly me. That would be cool, though, right? Ugh, concave. You can't concave something that... Wait. That's right. Oh, boo. But anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed the video and a few other explaining things and the navigational plus and minuses of Unity. I hope you guys enjoy it. Oh, and by the way, in the description and the link below will be a link to the navigational stuff, but in Unity, and I repeat, inside of Unity, you see this little button right here? It will go straight to the GitHub where all the code that I used for the navigation will exist. So if you would like to use the scripts that I used for the navigation, you know, the baking and stuff, hit this button right here. It will take you directly to the GitHub. If it doesn't, the link is in the description to the GitHub as well. And I hope that you find this interesting and all that cool stuff, because, you know, that's how the world works, I guess. And, you know, boo, right? Yeah. But take care, guys. Peace out, and enjoy the party. Rock on and code on. This is War over and out.